Good morning, Yasha Allah, and good morning to our world. Uh, in the revelation of Hamashiach, the book we know, that is uh, the one that begins with the wording, the revelation of Mashiach, which Allahayim, Yahweh gave to him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. So, in this revelation, we pass on to the book of Anukh, or the book of Enoch, and from page what's the page now? Come on, page. From page 30, I think it is, from page 30, and I think it's the second paragraph in page 30 of Anukh or Enoch. We look at the paragraph that says, "Go to the watchers." This is what Anukh is ordered by the Most High to do. So we're in the book of Anukh or Enoch now, as it is called, the book for the last time or for the last days. And we're seeking for the knowledge the book has to impart to us, being that is the book for the last time, the last generation. I think the book of Enoch itself says. And we want to get the lesson. We want to obtain the lesson that it has for us, or maybe the lessons, plural. The first thing we want to note about the book of Anukh or Enoch as being the book for the last generation, it has been about roughly maybe no more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, that I have been advised by the Ravak that the book of Anukh is a main thesis, a main study for Yasha Allah at this time. What we know of the book of Anukh, or for instance, first of all, what do we know of Anukh or Enoch himself is the scripture says in the book of Hebrews, it calls him Enoch, the seventh from Adam. And in the book of Yehuda, that small book of, I think, one chapter, something like that, near to the Revelation, he broadcasts some of the writing of Anukh or Enoch, speaking about the Master, the Mashiach, coming from the Shamayim with 10,000s of his saints. So there you have a real poignant word, I need a better word, but I'll use that one, concerning the Mashiach and the event of his return. This is way down, and this coming from Anukh or Enoch, way down in the beginning, as we might say, the beginning of our history. And so, as it is forecast or has been forecast as the book for the last generation, again, we must discipline ourselves to find out, to discover what it says to us who are as being the last generation. First thing we note is that Anukh or Enoch was translated according to the book of Hebrews or Hebrews. Enoch was translated, it says, I don't have the reference right before me, but we know the scripture, I believe. Anukh was translated that he should not see death. So he didn't have a regular death achievement, as we have been accustomed to in general. And yet, he was given revelation from the Most High that should instruct us in these that are called the last time or the last days. And we find in the writings of the book of Anukh or Enoch that he goes to the watchers. And let's read a little bit from paragraph 2 of page 13. The book of Anukh, page 26 actually, and in paragraph 2. Book of Anukh, page 26, at least the version that I have, and paragraph 2, it says, then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid and seized with fear and trembling. Now, the reason they are seized with fear and trembling, of course, we have to back up and kind of go to the first pages of this book, Anukh, and get a redress of its contents. But in any case, we see Anukh going to the fallen Malachims to speak with them. And so he says they were all afraid and seized with fear and trembling. When we read through the text and the book of Anukh, concentratedly, we find that the subject of address to the watchers gave notice of the coming of the Mashiach. That's one of the main characteristics characteristic of the book of Anukh, he reports, as it says in the book Yehuda, before the revelation, right before the revelation, that even Anukh spoke to the fallen ones, and he says that, behold, the Mashiach comes with 10,000s of his saints to give right ruling upon all that unrighteously use the Torah, and create havoc in the earth. Aside from that, or we will add to it that following the demise of Anukh, no, not demise, but his translation, in fact, when he was taken out of the earth, we had the flood of Noah's day, and so we see what happened in the flood period, the flood time period, that Anukh was taken up, translated that he should not see death, as we learn in Hebrews, Abraham. But he went to speak to the people back there and warn them of their unrighteous behavior, to let them know that the Mashiach is coming to the earth to give right ruling. Life to whom life pertains, and death, destruction, to whom it pertains. Way back there in Anukh and Enoch. And so what we find now in the days that we're living, that the full address of the book of Anukh is speaking to, addressing, for our sake, we are able to give witness to the fact of the revelation that in Noah's day, when the flood came, they were scrambling to get into the ark to be saved. Never mind the fact that, I don't know if never mind is the right word, but in fact, the people of Noah's day did not listen to his word, his warning, that destruction was coming, a flood was coming to destroy them. They say, man, the living is too good. We can't take time to bother ourselves about a flood coming, since it's never happened before. When you read the event in the book of Bereshith, I think it's Bereshith 6, they couldn't have time to, think about the coming event as it was forecast of a flood. And so they use themselves and abuse themselves. And the book say, until the day, the Torah says that until the day that the flood came, and then there was mayhem. In our time today, we received the word of Anukh, that indeed the Mashiach comes with 10,000s of his saints. And as Yasha Allah, whom the Mashiach has redeemed and has begun to seal, in that redemption, we are reminded of how we ought to live unto the Most High, Yahweh, and the Mashiach in the presence of the Ruach. Indeed. And so, the whole Torah, the scriptures, as we now understand them to be, and the evidence that Esau has worked so hard to strip away from the contents of the scriptures and hide works such as Anukh or Enoch, and there are others mentioned. Yasher, we call it Yasher, and I think we have some of that, and maybe other books that were extracted out of the original scriptures committed unto Yasharallah. But in Anukh, the day of the flood came and destroyed them. So you have the witness that it did come, and they were destroyed. We have a witness that the Mashiach is coming again. Remember those beautiful words? Coming again? Hamashiach is coming again. You had a quartet in Esau churchianity, and where they sing, their group called the King's Herald Quartet sings the song, "Lift up the trumpet and loud let it ring." But they said Jesus is coming again. That's the error. That is the great error in the song, which has been the proclamation of Esau since he rejected, disallowed the birthright as offered by the Most High, and he took unto himself the service of Gadriel or Satan, and continued to corrupt himself and the earth, the whole earth, and promoting Gadriel, Ye Kitab, and thus Anukh warning to give attention, to the righteous matters of the Torah. And of course, he goes into, giving address to the actions that were going on. We think about the idea of gene splitting and, such matters, such matters. We go into the book. If we go into it, we will discover the the content of his concern with the people of, or to whom he gave address to while he lived, so that they would have understanding of their atrocious ways. And but he was ordered to deal with the book, or protect the book, have the book given to be understood that it was for the last of days, for the last generation, indeed in our time, because the word came to me that this is the time, the exact time or timing for the exposition of the book of Anukh to the saints. And so I encourage us to go into it and really read it up and down, and get the full meat of its revelation. So he says, I went. This is page 26, paragraph 2. He says, I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid and seized with fear and trembling. They asked me to petition the Most High for them for forgiveness, because from this point on, they could not speak with the Most High, nor lift up their eyes toward heaven. We see a correlate to what transpired amongst the fallen ones in the days of Anukh, what we now witness in Edom and Levi, that is affecting the world in general. I mean, to give you a deeper understanding of it, for within the last 3 years, I have been bothered in my spirit, my ruach, with Satan himself, Gadriel, coming to me and bothering me about praying for Edom, praying for the Edomites. My life of consecration to the Mashiach, he now wants to order me. I mean, he wants to order me because I am a child of earth. He wants to order me to pray for the Edomites, for their salvation. After I think it's a matter of nearly 3,000 years that the Edomites have been destroying the earth and the people on the earth. I think so, the time period. If I'm wrong, it has been an extended period of time altogether that they have ruled the earth, destroying it and the people on it. And now they come to me. This is what they have done several years ago now. When I reflect on it, when I have reflected on it, because it was kind of a little bit far away in my memory, but the Mashiach, the Spirit, brought it up that I clearly remember being bothered by Gadriel himself, because he and his helpers thought that they have me for a sacrificial offering in Banyamin, because they, in their time, in the earlier days of the nation of Yasharallah, they had a Gag of Edom, the Edomites, who was able to persuade our forefather Shaul and make him give a blind eye, turn the blind eyes to Agag and Edom. In fact, Amalek of Edom, the bastard, and cause Shaul to disobey the order of Yahweh the Most High in those days of the prophet Shamuel. And so Shaul, harboring, when you go and read the story in the book of Shamuel, you see where Shaul began to harbor a dislike for King David. Well, of course, we find out that the dislike that Shaul had for David is centered upon or around the fact that the Most High had to choose another king, another Malach, to govern the nation of Yasharallah, with particular reference to Yehoiada or Judah, because you know that the tribes in South America, they were um, a little bit distant. I think I got it right there. If I'm not, forgive me, and bring it together. But Shaul, in any case, was given to be the king of Yasha'Allah. And maybe if I backtrack, it would have been all the tribes together. Anyway, but specifically towards Yahweh or Yehuda, Shaul was the king, the Malak. And because of he had this dislike for King David, a dislike that he got from Gadriel and Agag and Amalek. Amalek is the bastard child, and being the one upon whom the intent to destroy the nation of Yasha'Allah was worked by Gadriel, by Satan. And in his working through Amalek, Shaul, the king, became influenced, to have relations with Amalek, such that when the order came to get rid of Amalek, Shaul reneged on the duties and tried to save Agag, the king of Amalek. And the prophet Samuel had to stand in the gap for the Most High Yahweh and make up the hedge, slaughtered Agag. And then, of course, Amalek had that hidden in his memory. He tucked it away as his top priority to get rid of Yasha'Allah and principally the anointed one that should come of Yasha'Allah to save the nation from their sins. And such was the fervor in Amalek that he, as with the rest of his brethren, hid themselves away from the public view as much as they could. And being many tribes, being a number of dukes and kings, they would hide themselves within the various populations of the earth and make skirmishes of war and destruction on the nations. This is how they conducted themselves throughout their reign from the days of our kings, even David, until now. They have been descending on the nation, and in the book of Psalm, chapter 83, Edom says to raise it, destroy the kingdom of Yasha'Allah, with the house of Yehuda, I believe, most especially. Raise it, destroy it totally. And it is Amalek who was in the lead of rousing the dukes and kings of Esau to destroy. As was said in the beginning, when the birthright was offered, Esau took the position that he would destroy Yaquab, the tribes of Yasha'Allah, since he didn't want to have birthright according to the manner in which the Most High desired it to be had, and the benefits or the protocols of the birthright to be administered. So Esau rejected that, and the fact remains, as we can see, that he gave himself to Gadriel, to Satan, and with all his might sought to stop for the coming one in Yaquab, who chose the birthright and was crowned with the esteem of honoring it, bringing forth the Mashiach, and to have, the control of ordering, the matters of the birthright. And so the book of Anukh speaks to the work of the Malachims from way back then, when they were destroying the earth under the many kings and malaks that were chosen by Gadriel, since he had gone into the Garden of Eden and brought about the downfall of Adam and his wife, Hawa, our first mother. So he continued to rummage through the earth and used those kings that submitted to him, even to Nimrod, and destroyed the earth. And the trek into Mitzrayim, when Abraham and his children migrated into Mitzrayim, and eventually Yosef of the tribe, the 12 tribes, saved Mitzrayim from starvation and death. And due course, they mingled with each other. Yasha'Allah, the tribes of the people of 12 tribes, mingled with Mitzrayim, with Egypt, and produced children, from which we have the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh in particular. And when they were leaving Mitzrayim after being enslaved so terribly, the scripture says they left. That means the 12 tribes left as a mixed multitude. There were Mitzrites, or Egyptians amongst them, because the Egyptians had witnessed the Exodus. I mean, the working of the Exodus and the power. They saw the power of the Most High, and they were convinced that they should, be a part of this gathering, and that they should serve the Most High too. And thus it was. You see, but when it came time for the Edomite enslavement of the house of Yaquab, 12 tribes, you know the story how Alexander's 4 generals went into Mitzrayim, and they how do I say it? They constructed, I use the word, a bond. There was a bond made between them, Mitzrayim and Esau. So they were partying back and forth, and familiarizing themselves one with another as Esau the generals of Alexander, and Mitzrayim, and were taught the protocols of enslavement by the generals of Alexander. And although when it was time for the exodus from Mitzrayim, as we know, there was a mixed multitude because some of the Mizraite, they took up the thought or the desire to honor the Torah and walk with Yasha'Allah. And so now we have it that in the last days, Anukh was shown what would become of the chosen ones in Yasha'Allah, who would witness to the world of the coming of the Mashiach, witness to the world of their unrighteous behavior, as Anukh did to the people way back there. Nobody wanted to listen. In fact, we know that Esau threw the Torah behind his back, and his only aim was to destroy Yasha'Allah. And finding out that he could not destroy Yasha'Allah, nor the chosen seed, who is the Mashiach, in our present generation, I should say, he turned his attention to creating an institution called Christianity, the perversion of the Torah completely, setting up a new Mashiach, a false Mashiach, setting up a false people, as he always was, to replace the Mashiach himself and the people of the Most High's choosing. This is how Esau did it. And the key point in all of this, as the revelation of Mashiach, according to the book, is that Esau used his leverage gained in the exposition of Christianity. And what Christianity did, according to the book of Thessalonians, with the conquering of the so-called Haitians, the Levites, who had begun from the time of the crucifixion to align themselves with Edom, Herod and Pilate. They started a long time ago, and in their quest to break away completely in Napoleon's France, in their quest to break away completely, they threw the Torah behind their backs completely, as they had begun to do when the Mashiach walked in the set-apart land. And as their king, the king of the priesthood, or the priesthood people, the Levites, continuing in their hatred for the coming king that would rule over them, as was well known that he was coming to rule over the nation and set the order of Torah in its place. But they didn't want him to rule over them, as we see in I think in the book of Luke. They and many others, I'm talking about the Levites, didn't want his rule over them. And so in Napoleon's France, having submitted themselves to Gadriel, to Satan, they threw up a revolution that has sought to, convince the world that they were a mighty people and they had won great victory. No, they won death and destruction, because from sins they had gone into that revolution, turning their backs on their Mashiach, whom they were called to represent righteously. They could get nothing off the ground, nothing. They try today to promote their revolution, and it falls flat. You can't get it up. I think it's Gladys Knight that did a song saying, "Can't get it, can't get it up anymore because it's much too strong." If I'm wrong about the song, the fact is that the Levites have not been able to get it up, try as they might to magnify their revolution and their hatred for the Mashiach. Can't get it off the ground because the hand of the Most High, you know, with the Mashiach himself, indeed, has got them where they are. But us now, giving attention to the book of Anukh, and saying that it is the last time, we find that Edom has set himself to block the the tribes from obtaining their release from enslavement. Till now, they're fighting and seeing that the sealing really was begun when Trump made the announcement that the 400 days is completely. Shortly after that, a few months, December, January, March, December, January, February, March, like 3 months after Trump made the announcement that the 400 years was complete, boom, the sealing of the tribes was begun. So all Edom's work that he put in to prevent the sealing, even to grabbing me and making me a zombie, into a zombie creation to take my life as a service for Queen Elizabeth and her family. I was serving them for many years, practically all my life. This is what they did with me. And my family was in with it. The Masonic clan in my family set out to destroy me, to destroy our deliverance from slavery, and to try and get me, even my family. And then Edom turns around. I mean, well, not turns around, but he adds himself into the flow, to make me a recipient in his rebellion against the Most High, as he has always wanted to do. He always wanted authority over the tribes to lead them into idolatry and rebellion against the Most High, and particularly against the Mashiach. And so he thought, by casting his net upon me as a tiny infant, barely born, scouting for me, pre-birth, through the astrology and astronomy and so forth, came scouring for me, as it was in the days of Hamashiach when he was born. The wise men came from the east, as it said, looking for him to honor him. But these came to dishonor me under the Napoleonic Treaty, whereby the enslavement that was begun required that they have a sacrifice in Yasha Allah. This is what Levi contrived and tried to bring forth. That the book of Anukh condemns the experiments that the people back there made and to destroy the righteous and hold back righteousness. This is what Edom has. He read up all our books and he called himself the Illuminati, and I renamed them the Illuminum. That's their new name, the Illuminum. No Illuminati. Illuminati what? Children of hell, of darkness. That's what you are, the Illuminum. Yekabata Hashta. Yes. And so we have the book of Anukh to give us instructions, to show us how, the degradation among the population who are being threatened, under threat from the fallen ones that Esau worshipped today, that Esau made a part of his pantheon and have sought to make us subject to them. This has been his quest, to make us subject to Gadriel and all the fallen ones. But we, according to the scriptures as we have them, with the revelation of the book of Anukh, we cling to the Mashiach and to the gift of the Ruach to chart our course as it ought to be in Yasha Allah, to the praise of our Mashiach, our King, in the Most High Yahweh, and the blessed Ruach that guards us, safeguards us, and is willing to crown us with the latter rain. See, the problem that we have become beset with is the Christianity that was teaching us and that has taught us that Jesus is the Mashiach, and what that did with us, what that did for us, what it did against us, as was Esau's dream and Satan's attempt to fulfill, was that it made us think of this Jesus as the Messiah. And in that thought processing of the Torah, of what happened is and was that Esau was set forth as the Mashiach. And Satan, Gadriel, took it to put his seal upon it. Therefore says in Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, that he, as God, sits in the temple. This God who sits in the temple is the one that we have been taught is Jesus. We have been taught that this is the Messiah. And his spirit was taking up residence in us, in our spirit and in our hearts. We were being, in general, when we were talking about being filled with the Spirit, we were being filled with the spirit of Gadriel and the demonic. And we didn't recognize it. We were being filled with evil spirit and Gadriel. And in that vein, we were willing to accept the teaching or what seems to be the teaching in Thessalonians, that he, as it says in Thessalonians, as God, sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. All this God that it is speaking of in Thessalonians as we have it is Gadriel, Satan. And the Levite is there to promote him. So the Levite sits in the temple as the priesthood official to magnify Gadriel. And Esau, of course, maintains the kingship order. So there's this split between Gadriel's world order, where he, Gadriel, hides himself and has given his authority unto the beast, as the book of Revelation says. And it's got Esau as the king, ordering the nation around, and Levi as the priest, officiating for the ordinances of churchianity, or for their church. This is what we have been led into, Yasha Allah, and this is what we have thought was, quote unquote, the gospel. So this one sitting in the temple is actually the opposer of Torah and of the Mashiach, whom we were taught to worship this individual, this being that was read about in Thessalonians, to think of him as the Mashiach. You see? This is what we were taught. And we have believed it. And because in the 400 years enslavement, we were broken away from the Torah and made to submit to the authority of the governmental structure of Edom, who broke our hearts so badly. We were broken so badly and so cruelly that we all despaired of life at all. And then the 400-year marker hit, according to the scriptures. And when Trump made the announcement that this is it, 400 years is completely, immediately, as it were, after that, in the month of March, following, the Trump-Biden election, in the month of March, the 24th, immediately after the announcement was made that the 400-year mark has been reached, the Mashiach brought us the first installment of the Ruach. Yes. And so we got that installment of the Ruach to guide us, to return us to oneness with our Mashiach, with the Most High, with the Ruach himself. That's what that was for, to return us to oneness with the Ruach. That Bereshit says in the, I think it's in the second verse. And first it says, in beginning, Al-Hayam created the heaven and earth, and the Ruach moved upon the face of the waters. This is the same Ruach that comes, or that came, right after Trump made the declaration that the 400 years is complete. The Ruach came and baptized us. We got the first installment, Shakataba. And now we await the second and the filling up of the complete installment of the Ruach in our life. This is what Edom and the fallen Haitian priesthood have been trying to accomplish for their rule. According to the Psalm chapter 110 and verse 4, I think it is, that that picked him up and showed him forth, the anti-Mashiach. That is of the Haitians, the Levites, the fallen Levites. And so you see in the kingdom of the Most High, the Mashiach became a one-stop deal, a priestly king, a priest kingship. What God, Satan was trying to mimic and trying to bring forth. And that's why when they preach the book of Thessalonians, they talk about him as God, sitting in the temple as God. This is Satan and priests of Satan who are thinking that concerning Jerusalem now, where they're building this temple, and they say, the coming one is as God, sitting in the temple of God. No, it's Satan and demons, the Levite priests, it's a demon going into the temple to show himself that he is the Most High. And it's a satanic temple. It has nothing to do with the Most High. No, with the 12 tribes. Be instructed, Yasha Allah. And so the book of Anukh came to warn us of how devious and dangerous these fallen ones are, as they have been, and as Esau has received of them to come and tell us, to try to block our way of our escape from Babylon and from their terrorism and their putrid way of life that they have set up between themselves. In any case, their divided kingdom has a king and a priest. Our kingdom from the Most High has a priest, king, Mashiach, the one and only, him we worship, him we adore, him we honor. We honor him as to the praise of Abba Yahweh in the blessed Ruach. And so let us understand why it is that we have, been so hard behind this Jesus. He's the anti-Alahayim, anti-Mashiach. Sit in the, whatever depiction of a temple. But he put it in Thessalonians to make us believe that this temple has to do with the Most High and with the Mashiach. It does not. So now, in the sealing work, the work of the Mashiach is to cleanse all of that filth out of us, all of that thinking, and all of that demonic installment that we receive in Christianity has to be washed out. Therefore, we have to be, in prayer. What did the book of Thessalonians, not Thessalonians, Philippians say? Instant in prayer. We have to be always praying and beseeching the Most High, beseeching our Mashiach, who is the King, the Malach of Malachs, and our High Priest, to cleanse us, to break up that installment of Gadriel into us, who has become, he's the one who has filled us. That's the one who filled us. That's the one we need to get rid of. And that's the work of the Mashiach, presently as we are speaking. So that Thessalonian stuff that you have been led into in the 400 years breaking up of the tribes of Yasha Allah, began its restructuring with the announcement that the 400 years was completed, announced by Trump himself. And right after that following, we got the first installment of the Ruach, the real Ruach, And the work is continuing to cleanse us from the deception that made us think that what we call the baptism of the Spirit and Esau's church, his church world, we sought to claim that as a heritage of the scripture to be what we were aiming at. We got to separate the ideas now and yield ourselves to the Mashiach to fill us with the second installment of the Ruach according to his will, and get rid of Jesus and sitting in the temple and showing himself that, no, that's not for us. That's for Esau and Levi and all the demons. So may the Most High bless you, Yasha Allah, keep you, cause his face to shine upon you and us, and grant us his peace, his shalom, as we gain understanding in his precious name, in his authority. So let it be. Malakata, Bikata.